Alrighty, welcome to episode 3 of the Bevlab Podcast. We got a very special guest here in my hometown, Boise, Idaho. We got Kris Gethin on the show. What's going on, bro?
What's up? Everything is A-okay.
We're going to need you to pick that one up, brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're a little old
do
school
that
here.
part. I need some CogniShot to get my
You're all
head wrapped
good.
around this.
You're all good, man.
I haven't done this before.
You're all good.
All right, so we're in Boise.
Yes, sir.
It's been like 10 years, Kris, since I came out here and hung with you. I was just talking to Sybil about it. I was like, yeah, it was like 2016. And she goes, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and we can't say where that was.
No,
Right.
confidential.
It's a confidential dinner.
But Boise in general. I can say Boise. I love coming here. Every time I come here, I start looking at real estate.
Yeah, it's a spot, man. It is a spot. Like I was living in LA prior to coming here, working for like Weeder Publications, and when I had the job interview with BBCom, this is in 2007, and I looked at this place. I'm like, I'm definitely leaving LA behind and coming here. And then everyone else from California came too. But it's awesome. I love the Four Seasons. I like the biking, the snowboarding, the camping, the good people, and obviously cheaper real estate.
The good people is so true, though. You come to Boise. So I used to come here every 30 days for the content at bodybuilding.com. If you guys were around, bodybuilding.com used to be the content place. You went there for all of your trainers, right? How many trainers?
250,000 unique visitors every day. It was insane.
It was nuts. And they squandered all of it.
Yeah. just fragmented.
Yeah, but we used to come out. A lot of us in the industry would come out here every single month and record content. And every single time you meet these incredible people. You see so much fitness. We're in the hills. There are people just every single day outside being fit. It is so inspiring. But I'm super stoked to be out here and talking with you guys. So, Kris, to catch you up on what this podcast is sponsored by Cognizin. It's put on by Cognizin, one of our favorite things. But what's so cool about it is that with PriceBlow, we sit down and we talk about ingredients. We always talk about science, With Bevlab, this is an interesting conversation over a beverage. And it could be anything, right? Typically, we drink energy drinks because we love carbonated beverage. But you guys recently released CogniShot, which is the first liquid shot with Cognizin, I believe, and a bunch of other ingredients that we really love. Mm-hmm. So we got the opportunity to talk about it early before it came out, but I've never tried it.
Yeah.
To me, this shot is the perfect stacker shot to keep for anyone who likes nootropics. I was really stoked to kind of like take it alongside a pre-workout or an energy drink or whatever. But the idea today is to take a shot of this and to chat, because who better to talk to in Boise than Kris Gethin?
Amen.
So welcome. I'd love to talk about your whole story, how you got here, where things came from, how you got. I was telling Cody on the way here, many years before I met you, I bought your blueprint book on BBCom.
Oh yeah. Wow.
I remember that a long time ago. I've gotten so many different diet tips from you over the years, but now, you moved through so many different things. Your Ironman phase, your outdoor phase, and now super huge with peptides and biohacking, which is where I really want to talk about today when we get there. But can we crack one of these? Drink a little bit
This
and
one's
start
open.
talking? Cool.
I haven't been swigging out the bottle, so you're not going to get any cooties. You're good.
Well, while we pour this out, Kris, tell us where fitness started for you.
It was mostly from after I retired from motocross. I raced motocross from the age of 6 up until the age of 19. Cheers. And I obviously had to be very, very fit for motocross, for supercross. Man, look at you dribbling everywhere, bro. Come on. You've never done a shot before?
Trying to get your cooties. I'm gonna grab
Sybil.
it.
Oh, there you go. He's all right. He's got it. He's got it. We've got a dribbler. We've got a dribbler over here.
Told me to get cooties. Can't take this guy anywhere. I can't go anywhere. Sorry. I'm going back to Jersey.
That is delicious, by the way.
That's all right, isn't it?
That really is.
Yeah, so we had to put a little bit of sugar in it, just a little bit. Yeah, I'll have a shot. Why not? Because we wanted to go like honey or like syrup, but the viscosity just wasn't right. So we did put a sugar in it, because if you've had like BHB by itself, it is sour.
Yes.
So we did some testing with various people. It's like, yeah, okay, we're going to put 3 grams of sugar in there. 3 grams is okay. So we'll knock that back. We'll burn that off by the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People are too afraid of sugar.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily overconsume it, but a little bit here and there is okay.
Well, you train pretty hard.
I train pretty hard as well, but I always look now as I get a little bit older, I look at the inflammatory response that it could potentially have in your gut that can lead to eventually over time chemical imbalances, because we know that like type 3 diabetes is possibly Alzheimer's, so I am conscious of that. But yeah, so the fitness for me was from motocross, and then I went into downhill mountain bike racing for a little while, and which was physically demanding, but it was physically demanding in regards to on my body, just the stress and the tears and the breaks. I got into physiotherapy. I had to see some specialists and got into physiotherapy, and it was when I started resistance training, I started to get alleviated of some of those pains, mostly in my back. So I thought, okay, this is something that makes me feel better. I'm a better person to be around. I get the endorphin rush, and now I've got a little bit of purpose, because my purpose had always been extreme sports, and I'd lost that purpose, went through depression. Well, I know now in hindsight it was probably depression, because I was just doing a lot of drugs, drinking a lot of alcohol, partying, having a good time with it, but not so good when I came down from it. And that's when I thought, okay, I really like this sense of urgency. I'm a competitive person. Let me see if there's a bodybuilding show out there. I found a show in what was called Muscle News at the time, a newspaper. This is in the 90s. And decided to do a bodybuilding show a year and a half after picking up the weights. Did that show, got second. It was an untested show. I had no idea there was natural and untested shows back then, because I remember someone saying, God, what did you use to get dry? I'm like, asparagus and vitamin C. You know what I mean? I was definitely the smallest there. Went 0 carbs for 9 weeks. I was hallucinating, putting coffee granules in the fridge, talking to the ATM when it'd give me money, and I was out of it, but I got shredded. And I really enjoyed that sense of urgency, not so much being on the stage, but the sense of urgency and weight training and feeling better and having a purpose. That was the main thing, having a purpose and giving me something therapeutic to my brain, so I wouldn't be partying or spending time in prison, because I did get arrested at one point, and that's when my dad looked at me, and that look I'll never forget. I thought, okay, I got to figure this shit out, and that's what kind of got me into bodybuilding. Then I went to college, studied international health and sports therapy for 3 years, nutrition, massage, physiotherapy, everything involved in that, and I used that as my ticket to get out of Wales. Worked on cruise liners for a little while, then moved to Australia, did personal training there, opened a gym there, but then I wanted to reach more people and started contributing to magazines. It started to stick. And I thought, okay, I started working for Weeder Publications in Australia, and I wanted to do that full time. So I kind of risked everything, sold everything, which wasn't much, and moved to Venice, California, and just kept hounding Peter McGough and being a pain in the ass until he gave me a job. So then I was working for Uncle Joe with 2 contracts as a writer and a photographer for a few years.
When did you move to Venice?
2005.
I think probably, I mean, we're slightly different generations, but when I came up in fitness, living in like Santa Monica, Venice, like was the goal. Like that was everything I wanted. Endless summer, Muscle Beach, live there. I get to go there like a couple times a year now, and it's just not what it was, not what I wanted it to be when I
it's good to visit. Yeah, it's very different. But I guess, when I was there, it was different to what it was in the 80s and the 90s. Everybody has their time. I had a great time, because the people that I was really looking up to before I moved there was the Mike O'Hearns and the Tito Raymonds. Those were the physiques that I was like, yes. I was really into bodybuilding, because I actually purchased bodybuilding magazines before I even picked up weights. I was still doing extreme sports at that time, but that was like my comic book. I would look at these real life comic book heroes, your Lee Priest, your Dorian Yates, or whatever, and before then. But I really aspired to the Tito Raymond kind of physique and the Mike O'Hearn. So now when I was actually training there alongside those people and then with those people, it's like living a dream. It's phenomenal, because I remember looking at those magazines when I was working part-time while I was supporting college in a wood furniture warehouse, force-feeding dry tuna and potatoes, looking at these pictures of these magazines, and I was like manifesting it. At one time, I will be there. I want to be there, and it started somewhere, and it's with a thought, and I think that's why it's very important to have positive thoughts where, like Kai Green said, those thoughts do become things. You have to manifest it first, and then to a certain degree, you have to obsess over it for it to actually become something that's applicable.
I like what you said about like a purpose, because a lot of people can get addicted to partying or whatever. And I think, our current generation would refer to like the Huberman thinking that it's a dopamine addiction, quick dopamine without work. But on the drive over, we were talking about how people diet and what is like, where to start, what really is the most important first step, which we really talked a lot about protein portioning. But what Kai Green used to always say was that it was all about the routine and the habit.
Yeah.
He didn't care if you ate 6 or 8 ounces of meat. It was about eating a good amount of protein 6 times a day. It was all about that habit. And I think we're probably all very similar. We have like a little bit of an addictive personality. When we like things, we do a lot of it. And fitness, for me at least, if I can every single day commit to doing something, that habit, that becomes a commitment that keeps me from doing things that get me into trouble.
Yeah, it's having structure, isn't it? You know, like it's not so much, okay, it's the meal, but it's that meal on time, and you're going to bed at a certain time, you're going to get your workout and your cardio done. Everything is more meticulous, and that structure gives you structure in your life. And that's all you want. You want something to work towards. If it's that next meal, okay, that's going to get you, it's not going to get you thinking about partying or doing something, off track. So that discipline that you ingrain just has that transference effect into so many other areas of your life. Because I hated school. I sucked at school, wasn't able to get qualified in anything when I was in school because I had no interest whatsoever. When I went to college, completely different. I was now able to retain the content. Maybe it's because I'm eating healthier now. I'm hydrating. I'm actually going to bed at a certain time. Maybe that was all part of it. But I feel that now because I felt this was my purpose, this was my calling, this is what I enjoyed learning about, I was able to retain it. So now I realize, okay, there's a lot of weaknesses that I have. I'm going to stick to this lane. This is where my strength is, and this is where I'm going to try to pursue.
I was terrible at chemistry in high school. I could not, for some reason I signed up for advanced placement chemistry because I want to learn more about it, but I was so bad at it. But now I spend most of my time with scientists and researchers and, patent holders. And I find it so interesting that I'm willing to sit and read studies. I'm willing to learn about these things. And it's funny, I sit down and I read like textbook style information. I'm like, man, in high school, I would have never been able to sit here for 4 hours and read all of this. But because I care about it, and because I can apply it, it's so much more interesting to me. That's really interesting. I think that's probably partially why it was so easy for you in college as compared, is because it sounds like you were going for things that you really cared about, the physiotherapy and the nutrition.
Because it actually made me feel alive, made me feel that there was a place for me. I didn't feel so stupid, because, in school, it can be pretty difficult. You're trying to learn things that other people are learning and understanding. You can't do it, and it's really frustrating. Yeah. And you get more frustrated with yourself than the teacher would on you, So, you go through that. And it is like a form of PTSD. I understand when people say PTSD, they kind of throw it around a little bit too loosely. But I can understand the mild forms of it, because now if I try to understand something from the accountant, tax man, whatever, it takes me back. I don't understand this, and it gets me kind of frustrated, and I just want to switch off.
Yeah. You were mentioning, working for Weider as a writer, as a photographer. You were mentioning magazines. This is something that I think a lot of people now probably won't relate to. Do you miss the magazine years? Do you miss that? Because it was such a different experience to have like one magazine a month you read for the next 30 days. Those workouts, those diets, no matter how maybe not realistic now we look back and see them as, or whatever it was, that was our Bible for the next 30 days.
And we collect them. We wouldn't throw them away.
I still probably at my parents' house have the Flex magazine with Frank McGrath and his forearm on the front page. I mean, that like you can imagine, you can immediately remember that photo of that forearm. It was there were such iconic photos taken, and now I feel like every day we're inundated with TikToks and Reels and YouTubes and pictures and all these different things. Back then, it was like you had just this content for 30 days, and everyone in the world read that and looked at it. But now I follow 5,000 people on Instagram. It's such a different time. So do you miss that experience of the magazines?
I do to a certain degree. Babe, would you be able to grab a couple of those magazines by the side of the bed underneath the chili pad? because like still read those magazines. You know, I really, really enjoy going back and kind of reliving those years to a certain degree, and just seeing, you know, there's something so much more tangible when you actually have it on paper. I love reading books. Every night I'll read for about 45 minutes before I go to bed, you know, because I think that trains my brain to focus, because we're so distracted, we're so used to scrolling, so our attention span has just disappeared. So I always take myself back to that, where I can concentrate a little bit more. And of course, the bodybuilders weren't so accessible back then, so you would give them so much more value. So here we go. There's a couple of the old school magazines here, you know.
That
These
is
happen
cool.
to have Dorian on the front, 1993.
Wow, these are in great shape too.
Yeah, so I love going back to that, seeing some of those ads, seeing some of the supplements, like seeing even like peptide-based supplements back then, because I remember Dorian had the Peptide Pro and the Peptide Pro MR. They're basically glutamine peptides. So I like going back and seeing some of those things, and, you know, what we can kind of learn and apply today that was done then. That, you know, you was talking about a lot of these things, you know, we're revisiting vinyl, you know, and I think we can learn a lot from revisiting this time and just how it was put out. But I do love, and I do miss the magazines. I'd buy them all. I remember even as a kid, I would go to the newsagents, or my mum would, and say, is the new Flex magazine or MD or Planet Muscle, Ironman, has this come in yet? No, it's not coming in for another 3 weeks. You were just here yesterday, you know, because I was so keen to get it. And then, you know, when you had it, it's like, I don't know, probably getting a newborn baby delivered to you. You know, look through it and then read, you know, you flick through it first and then read every single word. I absolutely loved it. And then years later, to actually be writing for these magazines was just absolutely surreal, you know. Now, in hindsight, I'd see some of Dorian's articles or column, whatever, not realizing it was either like Greg Merritt or Sean Perrine that was actually writing those workouts, you know. But still, I loved it.
Good.
Oh, I mean, I was going to ask, it's really interesting. We've talked about it a couple of times. You've mentioned to me that like bodybuilding is really interesting because it's one of the few sports that you train, you eat a certain way, you do your whole routine, your whole regimen, but it's the only thing that on game day, you don't really apply those things. Like, it's just your physique. You're on stage. Yeah. So it kind of segues me into, is when did you transition into your endurance style of training?
See, I've always enjoyed cardio from, you know, like doing the extreme sports, whatever. I've always enjoyed that. And there's a good friend of mine, Pritchard, who he was in a TV show called like Dirty Sanchez, which is like Jackass but worse. This is a Welsh version of it, you know. It was shown on MTV. Actually, I think they've got another thing with Paramount. They're going to do another one now. But like he said, because he got into just doing extreme things like Ironmans, but then he would do like 30 half Ironmans in 30 days. And he said, it's because I'm great at daydreaming. You know, I'm really, really good at it. And I thought the same thing. I was always told in school by teachers, you know, on the report, Kris is daydreaming again. I thought, well, maybe that's it. I like cardio because I like to just go out and just daydream and think. So cardio has never been boring for me at all. If anything, I'd have to pull back and do less of it. So it was an easy transition, but I just wanted to continue being a bodybuilder because that's what I am through and through. So when I started doing Ironmans, or endurance sports, I remember just someone, I can't even remember who it was. Maybe it was someone online saying, there's no way that you're doing Ironman or whatever. I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm going to suck at it. Sign me up. I'll do that. You know, it's a challenge. And I thought, this is something that I'd be able to do. I had no thoughts or at all that I could not do it. I was very confident that I could. I just needed to bring back the volume of my training because I'm a high volume trainer, like a lot of reps and a lot of intensity. Had to bring that down so I could recover. But that was a transition. It was just more so, okay, I'm doing a lot of this anyway. I just need to do more of it. And I'll give myself 6 months to do it. So I went from like a sprint triathlon to an Olympic distance triathlon to the half Ironman to a full Ironman in 6 months, basically. Wow.
And I know when you were doing that challenge, the part of the challenge was keeping as much size as you could during the prep.
Yeah.
So for anybody watching who maybe wants to dip into Ironman training or high rocks or whatever, but want to keep the size, what would you tell them to do? I mean, does it come down to the eating? Does it come down to you're still in the gym 5 days a week plus every cardio thing?
A lot more calories. A lot more calories. Like my calories went through the roof, especially on the days that I went long and slow, you know, on the bike for like a century or an 18-mile run sometimes, because I ended up doing ultra marathon as well. It was just like a rolling buffet, because I knew I couldn't eat the same way as the people that I was running or riding with, because they were much smaller people, having a few gels here and there. So it was a lot of food. I did consume a lot of carbohydrates through, which was Vitago, because I've been taking Vitago since like 2008. And I'd put the amino acids in there, the proteins, whatever I could consume as easy as possible. I did generally train 5 to 6 days a week, but I brought that down to 4 days a week weight training because I was overtraining. I learned that the hard way. And then instead of doing my 20, 30, 40 reps, I brought that down to like 8 to 12 repetitions. So I was really targeting this specifically for myofibrillar hypertrophy, you know, targeting the fast twitch. And then out there was a little bit more slow twitch, even though in those 3 disciplines, cycle, swim, run, I was doing a lot more HIIT work than your traditional triathlete. You know, because I was spending so much time, and, you know, I got jobs, I was traveling a lot. I needed to make it as efficient as possible. All my runs were mostly off-road, you know, in the trails, because I was a heavier person, 210 pounds. And, you know, I'd do a lot of running if it was indoors on a curved treadmill. So again, less stressful. Everything else I didn't have to worry about. There's no compound there. In the pool, I just focused on technique, and that was it, you know, because I knew bigger person kind of sink. Technique is all it was, and just being efficient with energy. But
I feel so validated listening to you talk about this, because when we talk about running, I'm like, do you trail run? He's like, no, I don't have any problem. I'm like, man, I love trail running. My knees don't bother me at all when I do it, but it bothers me when I'm on the street. And he's like, I don't have that problem. I'm like, damn, I mean, it has a lot to do with weight.
For sure. And like I'd screwed up, you know, I tore my meniscus and whatnot. The only time I would run on the hard surface was the day of the Ironman. Change the trainers, go from your soft, like Bondi, Clifton's, you know, from Hoka, to the tracers that you'd only use for the race. And that was it, you know.
Do you feel vindicated at all, or do you feel like there's so many hybrid athletes out there now? But I mean, you were the first person I saw doing it loudly. I remember when you moved into Ironman, there were so many people saying you're going to lose all your muscle, or you're going to lose all your strength, or you're never going to be able to do Ironman at the level that you want to do. And you went out and proved them all wrong. But now there's like Nick Bear and High Rocks and so many people doing it at such a level. Do you enjoy that it's out there now? Or
Oh yeah, I love it. I think the CrossFitters were the first real guys to show themselves as hybrid athletes, because they could swim, they could run, they could cycle, but they could lift an enormous amount of weights, and they looked like bodybuilders, you know. And what I loved about their physiques, you know, especially the females, they'd be at like kind of higher body fat, but they still had great six packs.
It was cool.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So that's very, very inspiring. But I love the fact that, you know, I started doing these Ironmans and whatnot, and people would come up to me and at an expo and saying, you know, I used to do endurance sports, then I got into weight training, so I thought I had to leave the endurance sport behind, but realized I could do it again. Here's my trophy, you know, here's my medal from doing a half or doing a 10K or whatever. And I'm like, that's awesome. So it's kind of opening people's idea of the possibilities, because we kind of get closed off into our own little worlds, and, you know, we're kind of narrow-minded in that way. And all we need is to see someone else to do it in order for us to do it as well. Like Alex, what's Alex's last name? The hybrid athlete lives here in Boise. What's Alex's last name, babe? The hybrid athlete? Huh? Yeah, Alex Viada. Good friend. I forgot his name. Alex Viada, he was the first guy that I saw doing it. And he is jacked, be pulling like 650-pound deadlifts, but then doing an Ironman. It's like, wow. So he actually helped me do it, because obviously you had to train a little bit different to the general athlete.
I love watching CrossFit for all the reasons that you said. Like, to watch people be able to do, you know, start a week of intense workouts with Murph. And then the next day wake up and go do a deadlift ladder.
Yeah.
And then go for a run and
on your hands.
Yeah. And then they're producing these documentaries to watch their whole week, and it's like they're waking up and eating a whole box of cereal, and it throws out so many dogmatic thought processes that we had in the 2000s, right? In the 2000s, it was like, don't deadlift, you'll hurt your back. Mm-hmm. Don't run, you'll ruin your gains. Don't all of these things. And then CrossFit is like, we're going to do all of them. We're going to do it at a high level. We're going to be jacked and we're going to be lean. And we're going to eat anything we want because we're working every single day. It's such a high capacity. And it's like, that is so inspiring to me.
Yeah, it's badass because like in bodybuilding, as much as I love bodybuilding, I still follow the sport. I know a lot of people in the sport and I'll always do it myself. I just think it's a shame to a certain degree. Look, if you want to take it to the extreme, I understand it. But, we shouldn't be static ornaments. We're useless without this muscle being our heart and obviously our lungs. And I feel that it's a shame that we don't use that and see past the sport to this other life that we have, our longevity, our health span. And I think it should be portioned in there for sure. And for me, I was able to compete at a high level as a natural drug-free bodybuilder, got second in the world championships. But I did cardio every day. And I honestly feel that it helped me recover from my workouts, do post-workout, have my shake, whatever, but then shuttle those nutrients into the localized areas that I just trained with nutrients, with oxygen, so I could go back to the gym and hit it just as hard the next day with a lot of volume, with a lot of intensity. I honestly feel that it actually helped me.
So much of cardio is building capillaries that deliver blood flow to muscles. Right?
Yeah.
And if I was a power lifter for years, and it was like the whole idea was to lift as much weight and then shut it down.
Yeah.
Don't move at all. Keep all of that energy inside of you. And like at that time, I thought that was smart because I was squatting 700 pounds weekly, and I thought it made a lot of sense. But then I started doing cardio. And it was like, I recover better. I feel better. Like so many other parts of my life are improved because I have better lung capacity. My heart works better. I'm not getting winded going up long flights of stairs. All of these things. I lose 50 pounds. And then all of a sudden my workouts are getting better. My pumps are better.
Yeah.
So many things are getting better. I have a better appetite. I can eat food better. I'm not like force feeding because of all that. And it's like I grew up in this era with like hardcore bodybuilders and powerlifters. That was like cardio was just for prep and it was just to lean out. But there are so many other things to it. And leaning out's nice, but there were so many other things that I came to love so much. And all roundabout way of saying that, I totally agree with you. I still watch those documentaries from CrossFit.
Yeah, they're badass. They're really good. Very
Watching
inspiring.
Rich Froning, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would love to. I mean, I think like I'd lose. He's not the biggest guy, but like to be able to do that, that is the real flex to me. You know, to be able to lift heavy, run far, do all of those things. And it's super cool. I've been getting into running this year. Running has always been a hard thing for me because of being a bigger guy. My ankles and my knees always killed me.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand there were things I could change about my form to fix that. Or just run on the hills and not have to hit asphalt. But, sitting and watching like Nick Bear videos where we're talking about monitoring your volume of training and all these things, I'm like, this makes so much sense. Why haven't I been doing this for years? It's really cool to see people focusing on it now.
Yeah, and I think with supplementation where it is now, we can actually get away with it more, where you just couldn't do it eating food. You just couldn't. Now we've got concentrated forms of the food or amino acids that make it just so much easier to actually fuel ourselves and then recover from it as well. So that I think that is part of the evolution. For sure. And you're talking about powerlifting, like Jesse Norris, who used to be like the strongest power lifter pound for pound. I'd see him do cardio.
Another local.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'd see him do cardio all the time. Like he'd do the dead mill as well. Like, and he'd have 6-pack all year round. I'm like, okay, so that shows you what can be done. Mm-hmm. I think you just gotta open those opportunities, whatever ceiling that you have here, blow the roof off.
Well, one discussion that we wanted to get into, I think it's another great segue kind of for where we're at and probably in your timeline too. We wanted to get into peptides. For one, congrats on coming out with your own peptide line with Doug. But when did you start incorporating peptides into your routine, and what benefits did you see, whether it was pain management, performance, recovery? I would love for you to tell that story?
Sure. And it all depends what peptides we're talking about. So, I used to, like I was talking about, like Dorian is a good friend of mine, has been for many, many years. And he had a company with Kerry Kayes who had chemical nutrition, and then Dorian Yates approved, and they had peptide-based products. It's mostly glutamine peptides. They'd have the Peptide Pro, which was their protein, the Peptide Pro MR then. So that's when I was kind of first exposed to it. But then the actual research chems, which, was about 2016, I was learning about it, maybe 2015, but then actually applied it myself in 2017 with your typical GHK, BBC 157, TB 500, your gateway peptides, And, when I felt and experienced what that did for me, I really started to dig into it a little bit more, because at this time, or like in 2014, I'd kind of gone into the biohacking realm a little bit due to mold toxicity that I'd got diagnosed with. So I'm like, wow, there's some phenomenal longevity peptides here. Clotho is another one that's recently come out. All these things that tend to deplete, like your NAD, your glutathione as you get a little bit older, stem cells. Now we've got stem cell factors that have come out in these peptide forms, which is phenomenal for anti-aging. And if we can live a better life, get peptides or bioregulators for your eyesight, for your skin, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. So that has really fascinated me. And now looking into the supplemental forms of them, like with your PeptiStrong, your Dileucine, of course, I just think there's a phenomenal crossover there that we're seeing and experiencing. And hopefully, there's going to be a lot of cowboys in this space now as it gets popular. It's kind of like the CBD era of years ago. Hopefully we'll continue to see that evolve and grow, because you've got phenomenal minds in the space, like Mike Felber, for instance, that are creating more peptides. Like they've just come out with this follistatin that has this, it's called FLGR242, that has this albumin binder. Back years ago, bodybuilders would have to inject that like 5 times a day to get any efficacy, and it's really expensive. Now they have albumin binders, so you would only have to inject like once every 19 days, which is insane. So it's an evolving space. It's fascinating.
For any of our listeners, I think there's going to be a wide range of people who are going to be listening to this, and I think there is a lot of stigma of like, what is BPC 157, TB 500? There's a lot of confusion on what a peptide even is. Could you give just a quick explainer?
Sure.
Simplicity, like what is a peptide?
Yeah, so it's a sequence of amino acids. So obviously we have amino acids in our eyes, on our skin, in our connective tissue, and we have a sequence of them that is replicated by a peptide. You could have a shorter chain of amino acids like a bioregulators, or you could have a longer chain of amino acids. In your traditional peptides, like human growth hormone, it's 191 amino acids. So you just have a sequence of them that would replicate a signal in your body. So it's not synthetic that would shut something down that's natural in your body. It will actually signal. So for instance, you've got like a growth hormone secretagogue. So that will actually signal your body to increase the pulsidity of that growth hormone pulse and the efficacy of it. So now you're having that same growth hormone pulse as like a 25-year-old, even though now you're 50 years old. So that's kind of an example.
I think one of the biggest things for people to understand with peptides, and this is a sweeping generalization, I do want to say, because peptides are technically, the definition would be, like you said, a string of amino acids. But peptides kind of refer to research chemicals as a whole right now as well. And that becomes kind of like a bit of like a gray area, because then when we talk about supplements, those are specifically only amino acids.
Yes.
But peptides also to many people means research chemicals, which is just an open group. And, we can argue on the legality of it. I want to talk about your compounding pharmacy solution here. I think it's a really good idea. But it becomes a very gray area.
Yeah.
But the big thing for a lot of people to understand is that generally, for the most part, there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, peptides refer to signals, right? It's not like testosterone where you are replacing something that will then shut down your body and do things to it. Like if you take growth hormone, you are supplementing or introducing exogenous hormone. Whereas when you're taking a secretagogue, it's telling your body, hey, that growth hormone you were already going to take, let's make more of it, right? And so there's a lot lower of risk of dependency or shutdown. Again, I'm generalizing really hard here because we're talking about a lot of different compounds. But in general, peptides are going to be signals that tell your body, hey, let's do this a little bit different. There's a lower risk profile in a lot of these cases. There are obviously always possibilities of side effects and things that are out there, but it's a much safer entry to, let's say, we used to call them PEDs, but biohacking, right? And I right now I love the fact that there are so many different entry points here where we could talk about PeptiStrong, right? This is a muscle builder, if not an anti-catabolic effect product that will help you in a lot of different cases with your muscle mass without taking testosterone. Yeah,
and just take it from fava beans, so it's a natural alternative that has been extracted in that concentrated form.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I'm so curious about with you is, like, as a natural bodybuilder coming into this, natural bodybuilding was such a stigma, like, to call yourself that. But now at a certain point, we're really starting to bring peptides in and really, like, and we had this whole conversation.
I think you're going right where I was going to go with this.
Well, Cody, you hurt your pec years ago, and he calls me. He's like, I'm a natural bodybuilder, but I'm not going to make it to this show if I don't have a pec. And I'm like, well, this is a decision you need to make, Cody, because I'm very loudly and proudly not a natural bodybuilder, and I have not been in a long time, and I don't really feel any certain way about that. I'm okay with my decisions, but we're starting to get to this point where it's like, if BBC can get you to compete, then I don't really consider that to be like,
giving you an edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But I can understand where they're coming from as well, because it does enhance your body's ability to recover.
100%.
And kind of testosterone or steroids can do that as well. So if BPC or your Wolverine stack, whatever, does enhance your body's ability to recover, so you could hit the gym harder and more efficiently than the other person, I could understand where they're coming from as well.
What I like so much about it, though, is that we are starting to get to a point where these topics, we're not talking about bodybuilders. We're talking about moms who hurt their knee and they want to carry their child.
For sure. My father's taken the Cartlax and a BBC because he should have had a hip replacement probably 20 years ago, but too stubborn and never will. But now he's sleeping throughout the night. He didn't realize that he wasn't sleeping throughout the night because of the pain in his hip, because, your senses get heightened in the evening, and he kind of got used to it. And then a week after taking it, he's like, you know what? I thought the sleep was because I just sleep bad and maybe I'm getting older. It wasn't. It was the pain. So he's sleeping now, And this is like general people, because we used to have like biohackers talk to us about peptides. Then a few years after, it was the bodybuilders. Now it's the real estate agent. Now it's the person at the coffee table next to you. You know what I mean? Everybody is.
I think a lot of that came from the GLPs, which it's a controversial thing, but I am so thankful that people have started to see injections as a delivery method that is viable and possibly safe. Yes. Right. We want to make sure that we're getting our things from safe sources, so that, anytime you inject something into your body, there's a possibility of some sort of infection. Obviously, that is like a very, vulnerable thing, but there's this opportunity to help your body in a way that we haven't been able to before. Yeah. Which is just so insane, you know?
It's crazy. Like I've got a friend, well, quite a few friends, but this one in particular, he, because some people will use it as a crutch. Some people actually use it as a signal. And like, he was on a GLP for 7-8 months, I think it was, something like that. Dropped over 110 pounds because the doctor said, we're going to have to get you on blood pressure medicine. You're pre-diabetic. You may have to go on to diabetes medications. And he's like, okay, that is it. This guy that I know, Pete, he'd been coming to the Olympia since the 90s, and the Arnold, and the New York Pro and whatnot. Never been into bodybuilding himself, but was a huge fan. Over 300 pounds. Like, when we would go out and eat healthy, he wouldn't. He just didn't care. But then when he got this scare, he went on to GLP, lost over 100 pounds, maybe 120, got in great shape. His blood work was phenomenal, got off it, and has kept all of that weight off, because that was the signal he needed for that, synaptic shock, to have that new neurons to say, okay, this is what you're going to eat now. This is how you're going to train for this new life that is ahead of you. And he's done it. And I think for people like that, who do it the right way, who are resistance training, who are following a nutritional protocol, it's great. For other people that it's a crutch so they can get away with more, maybe not.
Have you used any of the GLPs?
I tried it. Yes, I tried it, but definitely not for me. I've got a huge appetite, and I love having a big appetite.
I was going to say, I know somebody who is on a GLP, and they were like, yeah, over the past 2 days, I've had about half a meal. And I looked at my wife when they told me that. I'm like, I mean, that's one of the biggest issues right there. Like, people think, if I want to lose weight, just don't freaking eat.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've got people like on like a GLP-3, we'll call it, hasn't had any effect on their appetite, but some people it does. And I was one of those people. My wife actually tried it before we went to Italy, and she doesn't need to lose any weight. She lost 5 pounds in Italy, of all places. How much? 10 pounds. 10 pounds. It's like, okay, that's not for you, babe. But she enjoyed not having that food noise, I guess.
I've been taking, so when I comment on things, when things become as big as GLP is, I feel like I need to try it.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like it needs to be.
Yeah, because if I'm going to suggest something, or if someone's going to ask me, I have to try. I have to be not just that, I have to be that shop window front.
So I wanted to go on like a little mini cut. I did not want to lose 100 pounds. I couldn't afford that. So I've been taking 0.5 milligram of GLP-3.
So a 0.5, yeah.
So low.
Yeah.
So low. But I don't think about eating at all. It's a habit because for years.
So you'll continue to eat clean.
Absolutely.
But you just don't want to look at anything that would be off the diet, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not at the point where I half a meal a day. I'm not there.
Yeah.
Because my habits are so straightforward.
Yeah.
But I don't have hunger noise. That is the main thing. I've been told that GLP-3, we're not really allowed to call it what it's going to be called at the patent name, but I've been told that there's a glucagon effect where for athletes it's going to be very helpful for nutrient partitioning and carbohydrate usage.
Yeah, it's great for blood sugar regulation, so perfect for that. And it works more so on a psychological aspect as opposed to the gastric emptying part, which people like because they can still keep their appetite up, but if they're dieting down, they're in a calorie deficit, they're at low body fat, they're not thinking about, what can I eat next after the show or whatever.
I was really worried about the digestive slowing, which is not as much of a factor of GLP-3, but that is something like I did not want to have something that I felt might have a long-lasting effect on my body.
Yeah.
I wanted to get some effects, see how it could help me, but I wanted the metabolism boosting. I wanted the performance effects. I wanted a light little loss of weight. I've lost almost 10 pounds on maybe, I'd say 6 weeks, I think. It's not crazy. It's not nothing.
Neither should it be.
Yeah. And to me, I think that the biggest goal, which it seems like Pete did, is to learn habits through it.
Yeah.
It's training wheels to show your body you can do this and you can get away
Exactly.
with
It stabilizes. Yeah, exactly.
like neuroplasticity. I don't think it has any effect on your brain, but you were talking about it, like creating these new neurons, these new pathways that it is possible. I can do this. I think that when people are able to open their minds to that thought process and they can experience that and lose that weight, if they can continue on that path, and that's the most important thing. But something like 86% of GLP users get off within a year. I can't imagine most of them are keeping the weight off, and that's the scary thing.
Yeah, but a lot of them are not getting off the GLPs. That's a crazy thing because unfortunately, a lot of the doctors don't have a program to say, okay, we're going to do this for 6 months or this for 12 months. There's no end game, and there's definitely no training and nutrition program that goes with that. So people just stay on it for years, and their receptors have just died by now. So they're not getting the benefits from it. If anything, the only thing that they're getting is the negatives, because if they are on like a GLP-1 and they're not getting the food, now they don't have any energy because they don't have the nutrition that's being digested. And then obviously they're getting deficiencies in their bone, in their eyesight, in their hair. So everything becomes softer. They lose the energy to do anything or ambition. And now they don't have the bone density. It's definitely not an anti-aging formula anymore. It's actually accelerating your aging.
I love that point. That is really interesting. Like if you lose muscle mass, if you lose bone density, you're not actually helping your longevity. You're actually hurting it. One of the things that I felt, and I don't know at this point, I'm probably just going to finish the bottle just because I want to finish the experiment, but I kind of like feeling hungry when I'm cutting. I kind of
the
enjoy
challenge
that.
Because you're more old school maybe, and you feel like if you're suffering, you're doing something positive. You know, and I think that's the old school way of thinking.
Well, there's clarity too behind it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why even people talking about fasting 24, 48 hours,
it's a
like
challenge,
there's
isn't
a
it?
clarity that comes from it
Yes.
mentally, that you don't have this like carbohydrate fog that kind of tends to get in the way. I feel really clear headed in those aspects, you know?
You fast?
I try to. I'm actually about to do a 48-hour fast here, probably not this weekend, but the next one.
Nice. Yeah, because when I was dieting, I'd do a fast like on a Sunday or one day a week just to take the stress away from the digestive system, you know. And I think it actually helps with your body respond to growth hormone and testosterone, just going through that autophagy phase.
Yeah, the way my wife puts it is like, I mean, just think about your body and your digestive tract. Like, especially as an athlete, all of us understand that we're eating. The moment we wake up, we don't train fasted. Sometimes we're even fueling during the training, which is obviously going to be used up. But I mean, then you go to bed, usually maybe in a protein shake, light meal, and then it's right back at it. Like your digestive system just doesn't stop. So it's good to, you know, get through everything you're digesting and then give yourself a little second, you know?
One of my biggest fears in fitness, I don't know if you ever like clocked this, but I noticed the amount of people like in the last generation of fitness and bodybuilders that had ulcerative colitis or Crohn's.
Yeah.
I mean, John Meadows was like the poster child of this because he was very transparent and open. But how many people I knew, high level fitness people, who had completely wrecked digestive systems, who I would have considered to be very healthy, and I always thought it was from force feeding, from forcing these calories, forcing your body to digest all of this. And I sincerely think that like a bi-monthly fast. It could be
sure.
It could be 24, 48 hours.
Could really, really help.
Yeah. And you know, whenever we talk about like autophagy or growth hormone with fasting, we get like, you know, the Lane Nortons that say that it's not significant. And that might be true on paper, but I feel such a mental boost. I mean, fasting has been a spiritual thing for a very long time. Yeah. And I've just always felt like I was doing something right for my body. The other thing too is that when you look at like caloric intake and dieting, it's not, your body doesn't really know what 24 hours is. You have a circadian rhythm, but that's not the be all end all of your caloric equation, right? And so over a week, if you take 24 hours off of eating, like that's going to impact your caloric expenditure and equation for the, you know, the month or the week. I don't think there's very much of a downside to fasting if you do it right and you do it well. And I mean, if your goals are aligned with what you're doing.
For sure. And, you know, there's obviously this context to it. If you're like an ectomorph and you're trying to build muscle, maybe it's not for you, you know?
Yeah.
But for a lot of us, it can be. And again, you know, I don't follow so much like the Dr. Jason Fung or Dr. Sachin Panda's way of fasting. I'll still usually take some essential amino acids or, you know, not high levels of leucine, so I'm not going to go like BCAAs or anything, just to sometimes help with that prevention of catabolism if I'm on a longer fast. Like I just did Dr. Volta Longo 5-day fast recently. It's all perception at the end of the day. We're just doing something that we're not used to doing. Of course, it's going to feel alien. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but it just teaches you to be a little bit more comfortable. Being uncomfortable is just another avenue. Just think of the purpose, the longevity, that aspect with it.
Did you take CogniShot during your fast?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
No, I haven't. I've done ketones during fasts in the past because I used to do, when I was doing my second Ironman, I decided, okay, I'm going to drop some muscle and I'm going to do a lot of my workouts fasted. So then on the day of the event, I won't do it fasted. I'll be fueled and blah, blah, blah. So I was fasting and doing like more of a keto diet just to experiment. And so I was doing some ketone salts at that time.
I think ketones are so misunderstood, and it's not their fault. It's all because of the keto diet.
Yeah.
The way that it was leveraged and sold alongside the keto diet. And I try to do my best to help right that wrong. But like, to me, ketones are a performance booster. They're a mental booster. They're a physical booster. There is so much. You guys have D and L in here, which is both body and mind. There's so much to it, especially I call it like a dual fuel. If you're having carbs with it. There's so much.
I think that's where people are going wrong. It's one or the other, but your body can utilize and get used to utilizing too. Like I learned that from Ben Greenfield when he was doing Ironmans. He was using both fuel sources.
Yeah. I think that black and white thought process just ruins all of these things. I mean, same with fasting, right? Like you were asking, did you take CogniShot during your fast? And when I talk about fasting on videos, I'll get all these comments that are like, well, are you truly in a fasted state? Because you mentioned leucine, right? There's all these sorts of different things. Technically, I mean, if you drank anything in your mouth that could get absorbed, that could throw off your blood sugar or your insulin or anything, you're technically not fasted anymore. But what's the point of fasting? You're trying to let your digestive system chill.
Yeah. And if you look at a lot of the studies, so in LACA, is that it?
UCLA?
UCLA, sorry. Dr. Voltalongo, one of the teachers there, he's done a lot of studies on a fasting mimicking diet. So you're still getting calorific value, but a very low amount over like a 5-day period. You're going into quite a heavy autophagy phase.
Yeah.
So you can have some calorific value dependent on what that food is, and still go through autophagy and DNA cleanup.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible to just allow your body, like, hey, we've been eating 4,000 calories a day for 6 months because we try to put on some weight. Let's just bring that down. Let's just get amino acids in.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're an active person, you're going to hit autophagy a lot quicker, much like if you're on a ketogenic diet. You're going to go into ketosis a lot quicker if you're an active person.
I love that. So we know you through supplements mostly. At what point in this career did you start to get into supplements? Weider sold supplements. Were you involved there?
No, not really. Of course, I was taking supplements because I was competing in bodybuilding up until 2009. So I was an avid user. It wasn't until Ryan DeLuca said, I want you to do video trainers because you're the only one in the office competing because there was only 30 of us. So I was like, video trainer, okay. Started doing this video trainer. And that's when I thought, okay, I really should look into these supplements because now I'm suggesting them to hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, I do care about myself, but now I care about myself even more because I'm understanding I need to be transparent here. So I started testing a lot of those supplements. Some of the well-known brands tested really bad, and some of the brands that no one really would have heard of. There's one called Extreme Nutrition, and they tested really, really good. I thought, wow, this is so crazy and varied. And then I started looking at the sources of some of those ingredients, realizing about some of these amino acids coming from bird feathers and animal fur. I'm like, well, this is insane. Let me see if there's something out there, because I started like buying the raws and doing it myself. But the people watching his video series, like, I ain't gonna do that. So that's when I started talking to a couple of people that I knew from the industry, from working at Weider and then at bodybuilding.com and working with a lot of supplement companies. You know, I'm interviewing a lot of athletes, but only because the supplement companies are actually paying for them to be interviewed and stuff. So I had a lot of contacts. And that's when I decided, okay, let's see if there's something that we can actually formulate here selfishly that I want, that I can promote and feel good about it.
I really loved the previous company you were at before, Unmatched. Like, I really loved the simplicity of what you came out with. It was just great quality. It was the fermented BCAAs, glutamine, citrulline, and then you had even caffeine capsules, and then the hydration product. And
those were the flagships that we came out, the silver line, basically, before the pre-workouts and intros and proteins.
And I loved how versatile it was. I was in college at the time, and I was like, for anybody listening, don't ever take just plain fermented BCAAs alone without flavor. It tastes awful.
Yeah,
but
it smells like death.
Yeah,
I used to haze people at NutriBio by making them drink the unflavored fermented aminos.
It was rough. It was rough, but it was so cool to have the ability to be like, well, today for my pre-workout or just a hydration drink, like I'm going to put in some of this glutamine, the hydration, and maybe even crack the caffeine capsules in there.
And it totally disguised the taste of those BCAAs.
The flavor was phenomenal.
Like, wow.
Your hydration product was made to be a flavor system for those.
Exactly.
But that hydration product became a brand of its own, in my opinion.
For sure, because like this is how that came about. No one was doing hydration products then. It's because I was living in India for a while, and like I feel the heat like bad. Like cold, I never get cold. Maybe it's because I do too many ice baths. But I like physically couldn't hydrate enough while I was there in Mumbai or Delhi or whatever. I was just so hot. It's just so humid. And it wasn't until I started getting coconut water delivered to my apartment, you know, you could get it delivered like the milkman used to deliver milk, you know, and started consuming that. And I realized, okay, I consume less fluid, but I'm definitely getting more electrolytes. And I don't feel so bloated now, but now I feel I've got more energy. I can contract the muscle. I'm not cramping. So that's where that came from to try to put it into a supplemental form.
I got made fun of for a while. I mean, I was like screaming hydration off the rooftops. And it was when you guys were selling so much of that. It was a very simple formula. Coconut water being like really the base of it.
Spectra blend,
That was so interesting. Yeah. I met you at the Boise Fit Expo. It must have been like 2016. And it was so cool because we were doing the same thing. You know, I was at NutriBio. We were so interested in just at that point, it was transparency. It was like we weren't talking about like I think we're very spoiled right now because we could talk about new innovation and studies and all these things. Back then, it was like, do we even know what the dosage is?
Yeah,
you know, it was like
prop blends.
Yeah, and I remember my boss at the time, Mark Glazier, and I walked over
Mark's
to
cool.
We walked over to your booth, and man, I remember picking up your pre-workout and looking at you and be like, I would take this. And at that point in 2016, to say like, hey, this is a good pre-workout, that was rare at that time.
Mark and I had a lot of mutual respect.
Yeah.
Because of course we're all on the same team, trying to do the same thing, trying to push away from the remote control, the Netflix, the fast food, all supplement companies. But he really stood out that he was doing it right. Like complete transparency of every single ingredient. So I really respected what he was doing in the industry and still does.
Yeah. The transparency in the protein doses at that point, no one cared. No one understood. But to explain like, hey, your isolate's 90%, your concentrate's 80%. If you buy Synthesis 6, you're getting 40%. Yeah. And that was like just like you were saying early on when we started testing things, we started talking about it. People are like, what do you mean? The pre-workout or the protein you're talking about is the top selling protein in the whole market. There's no way it's bad quality.
Yeah, remember Muscle Farm, there was a lot of spiking that was happening there.
I remember
spiking.
Back in that day, I don't know if you remember this, there was an import paperwork for the Muscle Farm Arnold protein that got leaked because like to import it into overseas, sometimes you would have to give them like the real formula. And it was like 90%, 34% concentrate, 1% isolate. And it came out and everyone's like, this is really what we're spending $70 on. Yeah. Or I suppose at the time it was $50. This was before the protein price hikes. But, I mean, it was such a different industry. And it was like over the course of like a year, you guys, Jim Stepani, NutriBio, all of a sudden, if you had proprietary blends, you were out.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been the races ever since. And now with you guys with Unmatched, I feel like you guys just come out with bangers every single month, which is really fun.
Yeah, we got a lot in the pipeline. We've probably got enough for the next year, in all honesty. The only thing that holds us back really is the funds, because there's a lot of R&D that goes behind it, as you know. And, you've got the protein prices. That's another conversation again. But then you really want to put out new product. Like I'd like to put out 10 products out next week. But I know there's marketing that goes behind it. There's R&D that goes behind it, whatever. So it takes time. But I'm really enjoying the process that we're doing at the moment, And I don't think, I've got other investments and stuff like that. This is just fun for me. I really enjoy, people's feedback. I honestly didn't know if this would work. Really didn't know if this would work with the consumer. Because I was like, do we even think about putting this on other platforms, on Amazon, or should we just try it on DTC first? But it's working. And that's the exciting part, because you put something out there and you have no idea if it's going to stick. Like for instance, like our Immuno IgG. I love that product. Much higher immunoglobulins than what you got in a colostrum, but it doesn't really sell that much, And maybe we didn't do it the name justice, so people don't understand it. But that's the fun thing. It's risky, and you don't know what's going to stick and what's not. It's exciting.
You have a fun community and a following because they will listen to you talk about things that are maybe a little less tangible.
Coffee enemas.
Hey, I would argue that's very tangible. We were thinking
of actually doing that on April 1st, but actually selling it, like actually putting it out there.
That would be fun.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll buy one.
Okay.
You put it out there.
All right, well, we got 3 customers.
I mean, I sincerely think the coffee enema is your secret weapon. I mean, like...
Every week, man.
Dude... I mean, that's like the first thing. You talk about Kris Gethin, someone talks about coffee. It's like, it is like...
That's my legacy. Okay, that's on my tombstone.
It's hilarious. I mean, but it is that point, your consumers will listen to you talk about things that are maybe not even relatable, or just very out there and different. But generally, typical consumers, and this is why it's cool that you have that, typical consumers want to feel something.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot. It's all about, can I take this and can I feel it quickly, right? We're talking about these pouches. You take them, you feel them.
Yeah.
People like energy drinks. They take them, they feel them. And I think CogniShot is a really cool product because you can take that and you can feel it.
Yeah, for sure. And it hits quick. That's what I noticed, like super quick.
Like 10 minutes into talking, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm lit up.
Yeah,
This is good.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. It does kick in quick, but like you know, especially this day and age, people do want to feel something. So that's the harder part when you're educating someone like on like a dileucine, for instance. Sure. You're not going to feel that straight away, but your body's ability to recover over time is going to be enhanced. Like let's say smash leg. This is what I notice. You smash legs. Usually crawling around by your lips for a couple of days, you know, but you can actually walk the following day. Right. So, you know, unless you're really attuned to your body or unless you're really training like an absolute animal, maybe you're not going to feel it, you know? So it's water that you have to tread carefully with, you know, and people have to understand that part of this is this, you know, a decision for the future. Yes. You know, if someone has, I don't know, dementia or maybe cancer, maybe that didn't come from the decision of today, but it came from the decisions of 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's just an accumulation over time that either helps, hinders, hurts, heals, whatever.
I think the answer is most likely ingredient companies or finished product companies studying products for those benefits. Like I think if you studied PeptiStrong or dileucine for DL185 for soreness after your workout, you could say, hey, this will make you less sore. It'll make you recover faster. I think one of the strongest things about CogniShot is that you have multiple ingredients in there that you can say you'll take and you'll feel.
Yeah, and you'll feel, but there's some things in there that have shown, you know, like the Cognizin studies, for instance, for that brain health for the future.
Yes.
Because, of course, we don't want dementia or anything like that, God forbid. And it doesn't require any, like, carbohydrates or insulin that could potentially create reactive oxygen species. It's there, it's ATP, and it's energy, and it's brain protective. Are you going to feel that necessarily? You know, the long-term benefits? No, the short-term you will, but think about the long-term benefits as well. It's much like you eat that healthy chicken and, you know, rice, whatever. Yes, it's going to help right now, but the healing that could provide for your future, that's something that you can't feel right now, but it's an investment that you should make.
Yeah. Cognizin's done a good job of that where clearly we're feeling it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
for sure.
The speed of our speaking, I think, went up once we started feeling it. But there are studies to show long term, you're going to see actual health benefits. It's always funny when I talk about something like Cognizin, it's like I want to tell people like, yeah, you're going to take this, you're going to be more focused, you're going to have more energy. But the true thing is that long-term health benefit is going to be like, you know, you can't put a price on that.
That's the thing that attracts me the most, in all honesty. I don't need the motivation to go to the gym. I'm going to train hard anyway, regardless. It does help, especially on days that I am a little bit tired or dragging ass. But for me, especially at my age now, I'm constantly thinking about things like that, especially when you see relatives or friends that do deal with decline or cognitive decline. You definitely think about it a lot more.
And if you're somebody who's listening and you're like, man, I wouldn't take this because I'm just going to crack an energy drink or I'm going to look to caffeine. Well, I always talk about this when it comes to ketones. I really enjoy ketones before sleep is too. And there are some cool studies that are coming out about it. And I've heard there's a lot of people skeptical about it, but from personal experience, I mean, I have a little vial of goBHB, which is in CogniShot, that I've taken alone before bed. I've stacked with longevity sleep. And of course, you're going to sleep great with that, with the Pepti sleep in there, the glycine, and everything else that goes in it. But I was telling Kris before the podcast, like, this is something that I would also think about trying before bed, because that's going to potentially help with the sleep. The lion's mane, that mushroom, I think could also help with that. The Cognizin, of course, it's not just focus, it's also long-term brain health. And if it's between not getting some of these ingredients in at all because you're so stuck on energy drinks or coffee or pre-workout, or trying it before bed, I mean, I would say try it, because I've seen benefits through it. I feel like I've slept longer, more restful sleep, especially like if I do 10 grams of goBHB, because I think the vial is like 5 grams is the little thing. It really helps if I know I'm getting like 5 or 6 hours of sleep versus my usual 7 to 8. I just feel like that sleep, and we talk about it too, it's at least more restful what sleep I am getting. So it's something to think about, and I'm excited for what studies and what information we're going to be getting out about that as we just get more people trying it, you know?
So you guys are really leaning into dietary peptides, natural, five being like your Pepti strong and stuff like that. We even have a product on the table that I'm not sure if we're really supposed to talk about.
We can talk about it. It'll be coming out next week.
Oh, so we got time. What is your message to consumers by selling dietary peptides? Is it that they can start here? It's a safe, natural place that they can trust, and then maybe they can go further into injectable peptides? Or
Well, not really, no. It's just that there's more studies and research that's showing, like you said, with muscle recovery, anti-catabolism. And of course, if we're training hard, then that's exactly what we're trying to prevent, right? Especially as we get a little bit older. And then, like speaking of Sean Wells, he's a very, very good friend of mine, how like dileucine, for instance, is helping with people that are dealing with sarcopenia or they're on a GLP and preventing muscle wastage. I think this is where peptides are really coming into the space as well. I'm not telling people take these and this is your gateway to the research ones. I just think they have their place and it's expanding. We've seen the guys at Muscle Tech really lean into it, and I can see why. Because, it's definitely, of course, it's popular. Like, we exhibited at the Health Optimization Summit, which is an anti-aging biohacking event that I was speaking at, and everybody just went towards the peptide because they know peptide is the buzzword, right? Okay, which is great. But I want people to understand that there's so many benefits to it. Like you think of your leucine molecule and it, with the HMB as well, it just enhances that ability of what that leucine does by itself because now it's double bonded. That uptake is so much quicker, which creates that anabolic response, And I just think there's so much there that we're still learning about. And I feel like I'm learning from it. We tell people to take the DL185 post-workout. But Sean said, well, if you can afford it, take pre-workout as well. So I started doing that and feeling even better from it. So I think there's just a lot there we're just scratching the surface on. And, we came out with a collagen peptide 6 because we have 6 types of collagen in there. It turned out to be great. Very, very popular.
I love that you call it Muscle Tech. I think Muscle Tech has always been on the forefront of not just innovation, but marketing it really fun and exciting.
They've done a great, they've got their own thing on the website now, peptides,
Yeah.
It's not just pre-workouts and post-workout peptides.
Because people are looking for that. It's a buzzword. People want to know about it. My mom calls me and asks me, what is peptides? Like what are these things? I kind of also like, though, the way that you guys, the beginning of this podcast, you were literally like, Dorian Yates had a peptide product. It's nothing new. We've been taking this forever. These are just the ones that you can trust. I like both sides of that because it is exciting. It's fun. I love getting new peptides in to try.
Yeah.
When before they were like commercially available, I was doing a double dose of DL185 and a double dose of Pepti Strong. Because again, Sean Wells tells you something's cool, you can try it.
I remember him and a couple of his guys, one of his videographers, like going around like those biohacking events with like a blank bottle with pills in it. So it's like, this is like caffeine, is paraxanthine, and we're like swallowing these paraxanthine caps, It's great.
That's half the fun of all this industry is getting to try new things and seeing how they affect you. And sometimes there's some bad experiences too, but just getting to try something new and seeing how we can
Ultimate
use
Orange or something back in the day.
a little too much Yohimbe or something, like every here and there it happens, but being able to see like, hey, here's this natural product I'm affecting the chemistry of my body and making myself better. That is so exciting. And just the way that you're like putting these peptides in and not like having to say like, hey, we're using peptides. Well, you're kind of just driving, effects for consumers and saying, yeah, we've been using peptides for a while, and this is how we're going to put them into products for you. So this Pepti size, if this is coming out next week, this is my HMB from TSI. They also, they distribute that paraxanthine that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Pepti Strong from Neuritas, big fans. And Kris Gethin, who you guys have been big on.
Kris Gethin works so well, as you've probably seen a lot of the studies with not just HMB by itself or creatine by itself, but when you combine them together, it's not like 2x, it's like 5x. So there's a reason, wanted to put that in there, of course, with the Pepti Strong. And I love Kris Gethin. I absolutely love it because of the 4 pathways that it gets absorbed into the cell. Not just the one, you got your taurine, your GABA, your passive diffusion, so I've never, nothing wrong with creatine. Love creatine. but I can't take it. I just never have. You know, like some people get an upset stomach with Yohimbe. I get an upset stomach with creatine. Just a particle size. It's just not for me. So then I went to different type of creatine esters and then HCl. And then when I came across this, I was actually speaking at a biohacking event in Amsterdam. This is about 4 or 5 years ago, and I met the professor who was doing a lot of and this other guy, I'm trying to think of his name, escapes me, but they had creatine, and I tested it there, and they sent it to me. I don't know if you know Lucas Oon as well. So Lucas, you know, was a big advocate of it back then. I'm like, let me try this. It wasn't here, so we got the exclusivity of it here from Serbia.
Let me ask you, how much of it do you use?
4 scoops.
So that's what, 8 grams of creatine?
Yeah. So because like you could take the equivalent of like your 5 grams, 1 scoop or whatever. But I know not just for the ATP physical benefits, if I want the neuroprotective benefits and the bone benefits, I have to go higher dose. So that's why I go the higher dose. We are even considering maybe doing bigger containers of the creatine for that purpose.
I'm a big fan of the big doses of creatine, or creatine in general. I can handle creatine monohydrate quite well, but I understand the creatine. I would love to, for myself, I'd love to see a blend of creatine monohydrate and creatine. That's what I would do, because I can handle it. But I look at creatine monohydrate as like just base.
Yeah.
It's just a nutrient
for the majority of people. That's great.
Creatine's like a designer creatine to me, right?
Yeah.
It's much more mental. You feel it like it's much more acute.
Well, it crosses a blood-brain barrier more efficiently because of those 4 pathways as well. You know, we did put the B vitamins in there because there was the homocysteine concern with the guanidinoacetic acid. But then obviously we've seen that the creatine lowers the homocysteine levels, and also the B vitamins lower the homocysteine levels. There's obviously always going to be like those people that do a lot of stimulants that could higher your homocysteine levels. Like, I honestly feel that some people who do injections of peptides, they're like, hey, I've been taking this peptide for months, and now all of a sudden I've had this response, a homocysteine response. It's like, were you low on sleep? Were you doing a lot of stimulants that day? Sometimes these variants can have that reaction.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we forget that with all these things that we're doing, they change the chemistry of your body. We're not buying paint for your walls. We're buying something that we consume, and it will change chemically things that are going on. You know, there were those speakers on the creatine. I personally, to me, especially when we're talking about unmatched, especially when we're talking about your products, we're talking about biohackers who are trying to push forward. You know, I understand the concern. I think including the B vitamins is super responsible for you guys. And I also think, like, you know, using something like betaine and hydrous alongside it is really healthy and easy. But you know, the funny thing that I try to bring up when people start having this conversation is like, when you talk about that homocysteine thing, this is not the only ingredient that plays on that. There are plenty of other ones that are in tons of pre-workouts that no one ever really complains about. So I love having open conversations, but creatine stands to improve a few things for people like us who care about proficiency or fitness or mental health. And I think there's a lot
I have a lot of elderly people on that, because there's some people, obviously, if you do DNA testing, you can see if you have the possibility of the onset of early dementia. Get them on the creatine, just to ensure that they have that. If they can't get creatine, get them on the creatine, just so you have those neuroprotective qualities.
Yeah. Well, when we're getting to the end of this, I want to kind of hop back into the new peptide brand for you, because I know that's a launch for you. I want to make sure we talk about it. Can you tell us about the company, like where people are going to be able to find it, and like the quality behind it?
Sure. So this has been such a long time coming. I can't even believe how long this has taken. So I'd been in talks with a few other people that wanted to collaborate with me to do a peptide company. Some of the people in the industry that I've got a lot of respect for, that you guys know. We can talk about that a little bit offline. And just something just wasn't clicking. It wasn't necessarily the people that wanted to partner with me. It was the people that worked for them that wanted to partner with me. And it wasn't until like Doug and I kind of started talking about it, because he sells, you know, like oral peptides in his nutrition corners and whatnot. So he was a little bit clued up. He'd never done a peptide himself. Like, it's funny that people call him Drug Miller. Like, there's no way he was going to inject an insulin needle into himself. It took me like, I don't know how many months to talk him into actually doing it for his knee, BBC. And, it just made sense that we've got such a good dynamic and relationship and team with Unmatched that we do this. And it took us like almost 2 years. I think it's like 16 months to get this off the ground now. So we have it manufactured and tested here in this country, because a lot of people are getting them from China. They test them over there. They have the COAs, and a lot of these COAs are just they're duplicates. They're not real COAs. So we wanted to go through every single testing, like the sterility testing, the spectrometer testing, absolutely everything to ensure there is full efficacy here in the product. So we've started off only with like 15 products at the moment, mostly that are in demand and mostly what my clients take. But we are going to be looking at expanding now. We just wanted a cash flow first. Cash flow so we can expand and look at different delivery mechanisms. Like I just showed you some of those topicals that we're testing out at the moment. So we're in constant testing mode because we do understand not everybody wants to inject themselves. So we're looking at efficacy in other delivery mechanisms as well to expand upon. So yeah, we just launched yesterday. Hopefully our payment process is back up today.
Congratulations on that. Yeah. So people are purchasing through you, but you're sourcing from a compounding pharmacy.
Yes, exactly. That is here in US.
That's huge. I laugh a lot because I'm on a bunch of forums online. I love peptides. I love learning about them. I love seeing how people use them. But so many people are like, yeah, I'm ordering 50 vials from China and I send one off to test. Yeah, because you can get them super cheap at bulk. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I send off my drug for testing, and I just think it's so funny to me that this like individual in their basement is sending out a vial to a random lab and trusting them to test something, and they've bought 50 vials, but they somehow think that this one vial is indicative of the entire lot of them.
Exactly. Yeah, New York Times are about to publish an article, it might be this week or next week, and they took 15 products from 15 different companies. 75% of them didn't meet spec. Mm-hmm. Either it wasn't in there, either it was low, or there was contaminants in there. Even heard of fentanyl being added to some peptides now, which is insane.
It's insane. It's not surprising, unfortunately. I've seen powdered estrogen found in supplements because we are importing white powder. Right, when it comes in, you have no clue, right? If the mass majority of all these supplements in a bulk form, you would have no clue if you looked at it what it is. So if someone tells you it's leucine, then it is leucine in your perception. You brought up sterility. We're no longer mixing up a fruit punch and digesting it, right? Our digestive systems have some pretty good safeguards to keep us from consuming something that would be bad for ourselves. You can't say the same for injecting it physically directly into your body. Very scary. I mean, very scary that so many people are, sourcing things. They're buying syringes, they're buying water, they're doing this all in their kitchen. Not to say that it's not possible or to do it safely. It is entirely possible, but I'm happy that someone is doing the due diligence to put it together. I mean, you guys, I think what you mentioned was really well to call out is that you have a team that manages supply chain already, that they understand how to put these things together. You have a rock star who unfortunately never really gets shouted out, Dave Reinecke, who has helped out with so many of the Crush It brands, but especially Unmatched. Unfortunately, we don't shout him out enough. You have people on that team who understand the process of bringing something to market, and maybe they haven't done or sold peptides before, but it's going to be much different than someone just importing from China and selling to people.
Yeah, and I think it's because, we come from the supplement industry. We want to make sure everything is not, just meeting spec. It's above spec. It's perfected. So, of course, we're just carrying that into the research space, even though it's not necessarily the same company. They're two completely separate companies for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. But we still have that same mentality, even more so. Because like you said, this is not something that you're wearing, you're consuming. You're actually injecting this. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we've crossed all of our P's and Q's here.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, before we end, this is probably just going to be a Bevlab segment eventually as we go. I'm going to rapid fire you a couple questions here.
Oh, look out.
You ready for this? All right. Upper body day or lower body day?
Lower body day, man. Yeah, it's the challenge. Separates the men from the boys.
There you go. Favorite flavor of Unmatched protein?
It's got to be the cinnamon, frosted cinnamon now. It's become my favorite. I didn't think it would, but it has been.
So freaking good. I've enjoyed that one too. Like as soon as I came in, I had it and I was blown away. I was telling you that like a lot of the cinnamon flavors I've had of proteins on the market, there's either like a little bit of weird texture or mostly it's like there's this weird aftertaste that just sets me off and naturally sweetened on top of that, which is insane. So
that's Dave.
Well done.
Dave Renecki. There's your shout out, brother.
Shout out, bro. Shout out. Creatine or creatine?
Creatine for me because I'm a sensitive little petal.
There you go.
My stomach can't take the creatine.
Swimming, biking, or running?
Ooh, biking.
Biking?
I'd say biking, yeah, because I can just totally switch off for a good few hours there and see a lot of scenery. If I'm swimming, not so much. Running, I just can't do it as long.
I really want to get a road bike. That is
Do it.
cool,
It's great.
dude.
Mountain bike and road bike. I love it both.
Ice bath or sauna?
Ice bath, man.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, I know, because I just get the benefits from that throughout the day. The sauna I do at the time because I know I'm detoxing. It's great, good for growth hormone, good for heat shock proteins. But that mental stability that I get from the ice bath throughout the rest of the day is priceless.
Caffeine or paraxanthine?
It's paraxanthine, man. You know, as I get, I never kid about caffeine. I do caffeine all day. But as I get a little bit older, I'm very conscious of my cortisol levels. So I want to maintain lower cortisol so I can be in a parasympathetic state. And what I've noticed, I'm a very anxious energy person anyway, and it just throws me off a little bit. So I just try to go for something that still gives me the euphoric effects, but isn't going to spike my cortisol as much.
This guy just crushed it. Boom. You got anything else, brother?
No, I appreciate you bringing us into your home and allowing us to do this
I
podcast.
appreciate you coming by, man. It's awesome to have you here again.
Yeah, it's a dream. I mean, like I said, I've been following you since the Blueprint. You know, like it's super inspiring to see the way you can reinvent yourself and grow and do so many incredible things. So congratulations.
It's all about evolution, baby, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
We can't just stay still. What's the problem? Why do you want to maintain?
Be harder to kill.
Yeah, be harder to kill, baby. BHK.
There you go.